All right, good evening. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, but we're going to bring in our Facebook groups. We got Mile High Huddle, we got the Mile High Huddle podcast, and somewhere along the line here, we've also got, well, that's that one. There's a third one here. Maybe just go, no, there it is, the Mile High Huddle Super Fans group. So we want to get all that family in here. So we got to let everybody else breathe for just a minute while the tentacles reach out of the algorithms and the alerts and all that kind of stuff. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I am your host tonight, along with the usual host, Zack Kelberman. My name is Scott Kennedy. I'm filling in for Chad Jensen tonight. Doing my best to fill in. Those are big shoes to fill, so we'll give it a shot. Pleased to be joined here with Zack on a gorgeous Sunday night where I am. So, Zack, I hope you're doing well. How are things, my friend?
I am doing well, and like I tell Chad, we're a day closer to training camp. We're coming up on a few weeks next week, and it's the deadest period right now, Scott, and I'm just fixing for football. I know it sounds cliche. I know I say it a lot, but football season is the best season, and I cannot wait to get my fix.
I think I saw 63 days until, the typical week kickoff. That's coming up fast.
It sounds far, but it comes up fast.
The older you get, the faster it goes. A quarter seemed like a long time when I was in college. Now I can hold my breath for a semester. So it comes fast. And we've got some topics we want to get into tonight. First of all, we'll have some Javonte Williams updated news. Good stuff, I like to think. We'll talk about, as we get along, we'll hit on the chat and what everybody has to say here. But I know there's already some super chats in that have to do with Javonte Williams already. So we'll hit on all those too. Then I want to get into some of the back and forth topics that I've seen on Mile High Huddle this week, like the fiercest position battles, maybe the most underappreciated player. Because I've got someone in there that nobody else might pick. And I'm going to pick that guy. That's how underappreciated he is. No one would even think of this guy. And maybe a couple of the comeback player of the year candidates. We might hit on all of those topics. But first, Zack, I want to get your take on the latest Javonte Williams news that has come out. There's been rumblings of, hey, he should be ready. He should be ready. He should be ready. And we keep saying, hey, pump the brakes. But as we keep getting closer, Zack, is it closer to a reality?
It's so hard to tell without things being full swing right now. It's easy to get caught up in the optimism and he'll be ready for week 1. He'll be ready for training camp when he's taking a single handoff in OTAs or minicamp. It's a far cry. I've been saying this for a while. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but I'd rather have Javonte for the entire course of the year and preferably looking like the old Javonte than rushing him back for the sake of rushing him back. But if he's truly ahead of schedule and if he's that alien physical freak that Adrian Peterson was, Scott, it's a very daunting injury. It's multi-ligament tears, not just an ACL. Then I do feel at least hopeful that week 1 we'll see some form of Pookie, even if he's taking kind of a backseat to Pirine.
Yeah, I've talked a little bit about this too, because as it's come up through, the last couple of months, we're expecting him to be here. I think it was the first time. I think Sean Payton said something along the lines of like, we're expecting him back for, I don't remember if he said training. It's been a while ago. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was definitely before the season. We're expecting him back. And we're all like, okay, pump the brakes on that. Pump the brakes on that. And, the question is, the thought process is, I don't want him out there till he's 100%. And they're not going to put him out there until he's 100%. But you don't know for sure he's 100% until he's out there. That's just the risk of the injury. You can do all the mobility tests, all of the not flexibility tests. That's not where I'm. Stabilization tests. That's what I mean. You can see what's he squatting. Is his lateral movement as good as usual? But you really won't know for sure until those pads come on. And then there's some mental hurdles to come over. So I think what this does, though, does this put an end to any of the talk of another expensive running back?
It's not going to put an end until those running backs sign with new teams. So until Dalvin Cook formally signs somewhere, he's going to continue getting linked to Denver. It keeps happening almost every other week. But I feel like, Scott, if they wanted to make another splash, if they wanted to add to that room, they would have done so by now. Cook's not the only running back on the market. You have Zeke, you have Kareem Hunt. You have Leonard Fournette's out there as well. There's a lot of talent, and I felt like if the Broncos were even slightly unsure of Pookie for the course of the year, they would have added. So maybe looking at their inactivity as a positive sign.
Silence speaks volumes sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Is that what we're dealing with? I know we've got some super chats. I hope I didn't step on anybody's thunder with some of those questions that are coming in. So I want to hit to those as we say hello to some folks in the chat. Troy was in nice and early. He says, hey, guys, Williams news is double good. No need for an expensive running back, so we have cap space to fill other holes. Now, if you look at Spot Rack, it says the top 51 guys, it says about $10 million. That's a nice little cushion to have going into training camp in case you need to add a veteran that becomes available for salary cap reasons or whatnot. At the very least, hey, I can roll it over next year in case I need to do some things into next season. Having salary cap space is always a good thing. And Troy, we agree. There's not a need here right now, but how long are those guys going to stay on the market? You can pick a guy up midseason if you need to, Zach.
Sure, yeah. And you have to also keep open the doomsday scenario of maybe Russell Wilson doesn't pan out and the Broncos want to move on. Well, they're going to have to swallow a ton of dead cap. So having some rollover would kind of ease that burden. But Troy, I'm right there with you. As tantalizing on paper as Dalvin Cook would be in a Sean Payton offense, I would rather have that money if I needed to put it toward a center if Cushenberry falls on his face, or a defensive end if Jonathan Harris or DJ Jones in that spot isn't the right guy. Those are the positions they need. Running back is the position they would want. There's a big difference there to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we call it a luxury. It might not be a luxury with one injury, but hell, you're always one injury away from needing another player anyway. I guess the question, is it's astounding to me. It really is. The Javonte Williams could be ready in under a year.
Yeah.
Could be in the pads. Now, here's a question I have for you. I just said you're not going to know 100% until you see him out there. Let's say he's going through padded practices and that. Do you even take a chance handing him the ball a couple times in the preseason?
Ooh, that's tough, man. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if you're confident that he's 100% or he's very, very near 100%, if you can, I don't know. If you give him the ball in the preseason, Scott, or give him the ball in week one, injury can happen at any time. The injury was a freak injury to begin with when Max Crosby kind of landed into his knee. I think knowing Sean Payton and he says the starters are going to play, I think they could give him, just like you said, 1 or 2 carries, shake the rust off. But what you talked about earlier, I think, is the bigger hurdle for Javonte, and that's mentally. He hasn't played in almost a calendar year. That's a major injury and surgery he's coming off of and having to deal with. Now he's competing maybe with Samaje Perine to be the RB1. That takes a psychological toll, and he has to get back kind of in that football mindset. So I guess if you held a gun to my head, I'm open to give him a few carries.
And my initial thought is still no, because I guess there's still some disbelief that he could be ready at all, and I don't want to risk it, those first carries.
Yeah.
It's a 17-game season now. It's okay if he's a little rusty in one of those 17 games, 2 of those 17 games while he knocks the rust off and gets 5 or 6 carries as he's knocking those rust off, and then build him up. So my reaction would probably be no. But again, man, if he's ready, he's ready. So if he's ready, let's get him some time. The good thing is running back is probably the easiest position to learn. It's an instinctive position. How many times do you hear announcers say, "Boy, you just can't coach that. You can't teach that. That's God." Yeah, exactly. That's what the running back position is. Godsend to us sometimes is David McElrath coming in with the green super, coming in green. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country." Zach, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. That's y'all. He says 19 days, MHH for life, Buckham 3 times, and Denver Broncos for life. David, we appreciate you coming in. And Gary Palmer also coming in. Gary Leeds Palmer, as he was known on Facebook before he made the migration over to YouTube. GLP says, "Hey, Chad, Zach, and Scott, and Dylan. Hey, Broncos country." That's all y'all. We don't need no stinking running back, man. Says Denver Broncos for life, and Buckham. Yeah, again, need, no. Want, maybe. I've got other wants on this team right now other than running back. Even if Javonte Williams is 6 months out. Let's see, we're in July. Maybe not 6. 3 months out. See, time flies, Zach. I've already lost, 6 months puts us into 2024 already. I've got other wants for this team besides running back, Zach.
I'm still going back and forth in my head. That's such a great question. Like, do you risk it and give Javonte a few carries? I would maybe tend to agree with you. I don't want to come off like a hypocrite and say, don't rush him back until he's 100, but give him carries in a meaningless game. Ultimately, that's one of those things where if you give him a carry and he escapes uninjured, then you look like a hero. If you give him a carry and he goes down again, you look like the villain. So you never really know until you know, like you were saying.
It's just not worth the risk. Again, I think the position is easy enough. I might want to see my quarterbacks and receivers throw against another defense. And then the the co-practices. What do we call those things? I always want to,
Joint practices.
The which ones?
The joint practices.
Yeah, the joint practices. Thank you. The joint practices. Recently those have been used more for live bullets than they use in the preseason games, which are just backups. Now, I can't imagine the blowback and the risk involved of losing a number one running back, even if he's got a clean bill of health. Samaje Perine. I don't want to see Samaje Perine for more than a couple carries in a game either. And we're not worried about his health. Now, do I want to see wide receivers? Do I want to see the first unit offensive line for a quarter? Do I want to see the quarterback? Yeah, I do. I want to see all those guys. The timing stuff, that's where it matters more. I'm not so worried about an edge rusher. I'm not worried about the corners, but I am worried about the timing that you need to run an offense. And those are the guys I want to see.
You know who I want to see? Tyler Beatty, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tony Jones. If you're not going to sign a running back, well, let's look to the bottom end of the roster and see what the young guys could do. I feel like, and this is my guess and my speculation, the Broncos feel pretty confident that one of those three guys, the younger guys, can step up and at least pull some of the weight if Javonte is not 100% by week one.
Kenny Abayetta coming in with a yellow super chat. Thank you, Kenny. He says, good evening, fellas. MHH for life. Love the show. Just want to show some love for all the great content. Thanks. Well, can we give you a salute to show you some love back? So thank you, sir, for coming in and helping to support the show. Keep the lights on. Keep this forehead nice and shiny at the end of the day. Michael Rankio comes in and on Facebook, breaking the ice. I think that's what we were nicknaming it, even though he's in Tucson. Michael Break the Ice Rankio, Icebreaker Rankio.
The icebreaker.
It says, good evening, Zach and Scott on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Broncos and Buckham. I almost said podcast, but maybe this guy. Nobody wants to see me with the shirt off. So Michaela, the Duchess of MHH, gives me a chance to say thank you for everything that you do for this show. I don't get to see you too often besides in the chat, so this is my chance to say thank you in front of everybody, Michaela. Looking forward to seeing you again at the meet and greet in October. She comes in. She says, hi, fellas. Glad Pookie is doing well. We need him. By the way, did you guys ever get the super chats from Thursday? I wasn't here Thursday, so I don't know what that question pertains to.
We had kind of a glitch in the super chat system where Michaela was giving super chats and they weren't registering, in other words. So I got to talk to Chad about that, Michaela. I know he's unavailable tonight, but we will definitely by tomorrow have an answer for you. Thank you.
I'll check that out and I'll round up all the numbers so we can do an update for July since it's July 10th. We're a third of the way through the month already. It's been a busy month for me. I apologize. Busy month for my kids. And I think we've played 13 baseball games in the last 9 days. So it's been busy. Luckily down here in the South, I'm in Atlanta, y'all. The weather's been actually fairly mild. I know I read that the rest of the country is on fire, sometimes literally, but it's been unseasonably mild down here in the South. Michael Davis coming in green. He says, how's it, gents? Thank you for the super, Michael. He says, bring along Pook similar to to Dobbins in 2022, 5 to 7 carries a week, weeks 1 to 4, 7 and 10, and 5 through 8, and see how he responds physically. I'm pumped. Yeah, I'm okay with that for sure. And that was the question at the top of the show was, do you give him a couple in the preseason? I don't think I'd risk it. And again, it's not so much even about him as about the importance that he is to this team in a position that doesn't really need a lot of preseason action to be ready.
Yeah,
in the running back. Now he's different coming off an injury, but man, it's running the ball. It's not timing routes. It's not okay. If the coverage is in this spot and you see this, what do you do? It's not anticipation like it is throwing from a quarterback to a receiver. It's give the ball to the guy behind you and let him run people over. It's easy. It's a beautiful part of this game.
Here's my thing, though. Let's say it's week 4 and Pookie already has 7 carries in a game. Well, the Broncos are down by 6 points. They're on the goal line and Samaje Perine's tired. What do? Do you stick to that script or do you risk it?
You make adjustments based on need. Okay, if we go from 5 to, he got hurt on the 8th carry and we said we were only going to do 7. If you hadn't run him that 8th, no, come on. That's nonsense. So, but it's a guideline, not a law. That's the way, I anticipate something like that is what Michael's saying. This is a guideline.
Yeah, it's just so tricky because an injury can happen on any carry. So
Right.
you're always taking a game with any player in any game, in any situation. So hopefully the doctors and the new training staff, which I'm really confident in and excited about, as you know, Scott, by now, they have Pookie feeling right.
I want to get to David here real quick. David says, not being picky, but a proper salute is right-handed. Love you, brother. This is my right hand is my mouse hand. And it's my cord hand that runs across over here. And if I decide to salute right-handed, oh man, there could be problems all over the place. So pretty much the only hand you're ever going to see is the left one. Apologies for the improper salute, but it's better than no salute. Maybe.
You get a waiver. You have an exception. It's all good, David. We appreciate you. Appreciate your super. Thank you.
I'm afraid of smacking myself in the face with a microphone as I grab this cord over here, and it just could be ugly. So
make for great theater, though. Here on the podcast.
I don't want to be a YouTube sensation for that. Again, appreciate y'all coming in with all these supers. We're going to take care of some business with all these first, because they're all still on topic of Javonte Williams before we move on anyway. Like Ryan coming in.
Thank you,
says
Ryan.
Pookie might be ready for the season, but he will be on a pitch count, I would think. The mental hurdle will be the biggest thing, not the physical part. Zach, I don't know if I've told you this story. I went over my handlebars on my bicycle. Let's see. My wife was about 8 months pregnant, so that's how I remember the time. So it was in July, so that would have been 2009, so about 14 years ago. Went over my handlebars on my bicycle, landed on my head, scraped up my face. I was okay. Helmet on, nice little roll. But the next time I went down into my garage to get on my bicycle, I about blacked out. My body said, "Hey, dumbass, do you remember what happened the last time you did?" That's what my brain was saying to me. My knees went weak. I got like a shiver. I'm like, well, dude, what are you doing? You've been riding bikes your whole life. That was just a hardly a nothing, let alone what this guy has gone through. Yeah. The mental hurdles it takes to beat back your brain telling you, "Hey, dummy, this is dangerous. What are you doing?" It's a real thing. It really is.
It's very apropos. And like you said, consider that Javonte Williams or any other NFL player, they're in multiple car crashes. That's the force of the hits each and every down, each and every game. Absolutely. That's why I said earlier, Scott made a great point about the mental and psychological hurdles coming back from that injury. He has to learn to cut on that knee again. He has to learn to trust that knee again. He has to learn that the first time he gets hit on that knee, it's not going to be a multi-ligament tear. It could take a little bit. And we saw that, Scott, with Courtland Sutton when he had that ACL. He wasn't planning the same. He wasn't cutting the same because he didn't trust himself mentally. It takes time.
No, and I've always said and he's not a quick twitch guy. If this was Tyreek Hill, I'd stick to this. That I've said for years, even though these guys are back on the field, to be back really fully for a quick twitch player, corners, wide receivers, or a speed running back, it's 18 months. That's normal. And these guys are freaks they're freaks of nature. I've heard secondhand of surgeons talking about when they go in to do the surgeries, that the muscle density and the tissue density in these guys is just different. They're world-class athletes. They're superhuman compared to the rest of us. Yeah. And the fact that he could be out there in 10 months. Now, will he be 100% as far of what he was before he got hurt? Probably not right away. If he's 90% of what he was, is he still a top 5 running back in the NFL? Maybe. Because again, he's a one-cut guy. He's not juking a ton of guys out. He's beating on people a little bit. Unique Prepping coming in. That's DA Dub, isn't it? Isn't that who we're talking to here?
I believe.
Or is this Zachary Smouse?
It is. It's Zach
the
Smouse.
Name I remember. So we haven't I've never gotten a chance to say hello. So thank you for everything you've done for MHS. We've never met, but I feel like we're family at this point. He says, I'd rather have Pookie healthy and ready than spend money on a veteran running back. I think Peyton's experience will help. That's an easy one. I mean, what would you rather do? Have Dalvin Cook and another $7 million, or not have to spend $7 million and have a 100% Javonte Williams? That's easy. That's an easy one to say. Which would I rather?
the way I look at it, and I think perspective has gotten away from a lot of us, myself included, in recent months. When Javonte first went down and they were talking about the severity of the injury, there was legit worry and concern that he was going to miss the entirety of the 2023 season. The fact that he could be back by week 1, but maybe not 100%, maybe he's on a pitch count, that is a major win for Pookie and a major win for the Broncos. So that's what is giving me comfort in this guy.
There's talk, could he be back at all? I mean,
it was that bad.
This is a big deal, y'all. So, I mean, yes, will we temper expectations a little bit until we see him out there? Yeah, we will. We will. But the thing is, the kings of downplaying stuff are organizations. They're the ones that usually will not hype anybody. Do not have expectations for this guy. We'll see as he goes. We're going to be smart with him. We're going to do the right thing. You hear all that stuff. Man, all we've been hearing is, yeah, he should be ready. We'll see him out there. Yeah, he'll be good to go. Wow. Have we heard that about Tim Patrick?
Sure.
I haven't. Has it just been assumed? But I haven't heard. There hasn't been much question about Tim Patrick being out there and being 100% and ready to go for week 1. Has it just been assumed? It shouldn't be. So why the silence around Tim Patrick when all of this is talking about, we've kind of assumed that he was going to be back. What about Tim Patrick?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm very I'm taking a lot of solace in the fact that we'll see Pookie at some point. And you're absolutely correct, Scott, that organizations and teams tend to hedge their bets when talking about major injuries because they don't want to be the ones at fault. If they are optimistic and they rush him back and he goes down again, that the egg is on their face. So you're absolutely right. That's a great way of looking at it, that their optimism is genuine, and it's genuine because Javonte is actually ahead of schedule.
Under promise, over deliver. I mean, that's my mantra anyway, as a pessimist for sure. But coaches live by that, man. I mean, as soon as you raise expectations and then fall short of them, your job's on the line.
Yep.
Now, I've said for a long time, I wish more of these guys act like Bo Pelini. And Bo Pelini was like, "You're paying me $50 million. I'm going to say what I want. If you don't like it, fire me. I got $50 million." Sean Payton would never have to work a day in his life if he didn't want to. So I don't think he's afraid of the expectations, because if he doesn't live up to them, all right, I'll be all right. I'll be okay. We're not going to have to cut coupons this month if this Broncos gig doesn't work out.
FU money is a great thing, isn't it? It's the best.
I'd like to find out one day. Larry No Filter coming in with a super sticker. He said on YouTube. So no words. So if you have any questions or anything in the comments, make sure you hit them. I'm about caught up on the super. So if you want to get another one in, you'd be right up on deck. But David, he understands. David understands my improper salute. So I'm glad you do, David, and appreciate all of the support you give. Want to move on to, I'm going to skip topics here because I said 10 fiercest position battles, but I want to get to the one I said third next. And that one was the most underappreciated player. I think CBS mentioned DJ Jones was their answer. Would you consider him the most underappreciated? And if yes, if not, who would you put in that spot?
You mentioned him already a few minutes ago. I would be Tim Patrick. No matter what quarterback was throwing him the ball, no matter what coach was calling the play on the sideline, TP always delivered. And the Broncos offense wasn't as bad last year because they didn't have Tim Patrick, but I can guarantee you it would have been a whole hell of a lot damn better with TP on the field in the lineup. He's not regarded as one of the better number 2s, number 3s. A lot of casual fans don't even know he exists. They don't even know his name, but Broncos fans know. And I think if there's anyone as unheralded as they come, it's T Streets for me.
I think on a national level, I feel like, granted, this is a very educated group of people we have in here. Obviously, if you're watching a Broncos podcast on July 9th, on Sunday night, you are into the Broncos more than just the casual fan. I always said that in our business, we cater to the lunatic fringe, and that's okay. I'm head lunatic. That was what I've said for years. So within Broncos country that I'm familiar with, which is all y'all, I feel like Tim Patrick is is really, really highly regarded. So where did I just see in here? I mean, there was a chat in here saying I really can't wait to see Tim Patrick again. I mean, it just came in. There you go. Came in from Ryan Slavic. He said, I don't know about everyone else, but personally, I'm excited to watch Tim Patrick play again. He's such a huge part of the offense. So glad he's back. My most underappreciated player is K'Wan Williams.
Great call.
K'Wan Williams, I didn't realize he was as old as he is. He just turned 31, which for cornerback is, you got some gray around the temples at that time for a cornerback position. He's making under $3 million. He was on a 2-year deal, dirt cheap. And if he wasn't the defensive MVP last year because of a guy named Surtain out there, he was close. As far as an edge defender against the run, he was the best edge defender against the run, not one of your edge defenders. When they are in nickel packages and he was out there, he's taking on tight ends and sealing the edge better than any of the edge defenders out there. I love that he's tough as nails out there, and you have to be as you're coming towards the end of your career, and he's made a living on the fringes or else he'd be making $10 million. And he was obviously really, really good in pass coverage. And for all of the names we hear that we talk about with Denver Broncos and keys, taking for granted, I'd put him in there. K'Wan Williams is the most underappreciated Denver Bronco for me.
It was funny as hell last year watching him beat the hell out of people with that club on his forearm. I mean, that is a great, great call. K'Wan, a lot of people don't know his name, I think nationally, but Broncos fans know how locked down he was in coverage. And, you didn't hear his name a lot, and that's a good thing because quarterbacks weren't throwing his way. But they had another slot before him, Bryce Callahan, who was very underrated, very solid. You didn't hear much about him. K'Wan's even better. K'Wan shows up, does his job. And let me tell you, aside from playing quarterback, I really struggle to think of a harder job description in the NFL than slot corner, running with some of the fastest receivers, backpedaling, and he does it with aplomb.
It is. And the thing is, it's not only that, it's also hard because it's kind of your last shot. I've had this discussion with some of the younger guys before, but I'll tell you, the farther you are away from the ball, the more of an athlete you have to be, the bigger, faster, stronger type. So if they can't cut it outside with Surtain, they move you into nickel. That's why guys don't like that nickel label, because they're not going to get the $10 million. They're going to get the $3 million. And you got to do all the dang dirty work too. You're in there sealing the edge. You're taking on tight ends at times. It's in all the traffic in the world. So you're not only like one move away from being on the bench or out of the NFL. It's as hard. That is in your mind the whole time as well. Like I'm fighting for a roster spot if I'm a nickel corner, unless you're as good at it as K'Wan Williams has been. 31 years old. I'd find an extension for him, Zach. I'd work on it right now and see. Here's a 1-year deal. Let's guarantee your money, and let's get you locked down for $4 million for 2024. I don't want you to hit free agency.
And the thing with slot corners is they're like left on an island in the middle of the field. They don't have the sideline to work to their advantage. And K'Wan that's a really, really great call. I agree with you. VJ in Arizona had a slot corner named Marco Wilson, who was solid for them. And I believe he got a second contract, or he was an integral player. VJ is going to come to love K'Wan. I'm right there with you, Scott.
I'm getting a kick out of this super chat that just came in from Alonzo Gonzalez. He says, I had a dream that I was backup quarterback and George Payton pulled me aside to tell me I was going to start the last 6 weeks to try and trade Russ. Hope that doesn't happen this year. Also, Payton had Scott's face for some reason. Alonzo, I'm sorry for all of that. I don't know if your dreams are anything like mine. I can't ever find my damn helmet when I have those. You're about to go in. I can't find my helmet or my pads or something. They say that's like an insecurity thing. Yeah, I believe that. So hopefully you were ready to go, and I don't think you're going to have to worry about getting put in. I think we'll be okay there. Alonzo feels like a newer name on the super chat ropes for us. So thank you for coming in with that. And like I said, I hope any dream that I'm in, I'm like giving you like $1 million or something, and you're having more fun with it than, getting scared to death about having to go play football.
Thank you so much, Alonzo. You know, a recurring dream I have, Scott, is like I'm in my old high school and it's like later in the semester and I cannot find my class to save my life. It's happened like
I haven't
5
studied
times.
for the test.
What is that?
I had to go back and repeat a class in order to graduate, and I've been stuck there for 5 more years.
I hate it.
99 of 100 of my dreams are from 6th grade to college. Almost all of them. I don't dream about my children. I don't dream about my wife. I dream about being back in grade school, for God's sakes.
It's when the subconscious was formed.
Oh, it's awful.
Formative years.
Yeah, and I'm not proud of that. I'm like, good Lord, sleep better. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy.
Thank you, Alonzo.
So, Alonzo, sweet dreams, my friend. Let me see here. You know, we're about 30 minutes in, so that's probably a good time to just kind of recap what we opened up with, which Cap for Life comes and he says, any word on Javonte Williams? You guys still want Cook? And just kind of a recap, Cap for Life on this. Who's got a Dolphins, not emoji
Logo?
screen logo here.
Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar. Thank you. That I don't think it's going to be Cook. And I think a lot of us have thought Dalvin Cook was going to end up in Miami eventually. Yep. And Javonte Williams, every single time anyone opens their mouth about Javonte Williams, it's going to be ready for week 1. And that is just so incredibly encouraging for the heinous injury that he suffered when we've been talking about possibly 2 years to recover. To see him on the field taking hits in under a year would be nothing short of a medical and personal miracle for him.
Yeah, I think Cap just gathering some evidence here as a Dolphins fan. I feel like he's trying to glean some intel about Denver and Dalvin and Javonte's status. Cap, I think you're going to get your wish if you want Dalvin. He's from Miami. He went to high school, college. He was born and raised there. And it makes all the sense in the world, way more than coming to the Broncos, just being objective about that. I do think he will end up in Miami ultimately. And the Broncos don't need him. That's the thing, that the point that we can all agree on here. They might want Dalvin Cook. We might want Dalvin Cook. It's fun to fantasize about. It's fun to dream about if you're Alonzo. But the Broncos don't need Dalvin Cook. That's the difference.
Sam Bam. I was wondering where you were, Sam. I was like, where's Sam? Where's Sam Bam coming in? He says, hey, guys, getting in here late. Go Broncos.
Glad you made it. Good to see you, Sam. Thank you.
Glad you made it. So welcome in. Appreciate your support. David's having a good laugh with Alonzo for sure. Let's get moving just here a little bit here. And I think it was Eric Trickle had an article, and they may have gone over some of this on Friday, but I want to hear some of your takes on this, Zach. It's a different audience. Not everybody can make every single night. 10 of the fiercest position battles across the Denver Broncos. As you look across the lineup, I don't know how many position battles. I think at number 1, he put the wide receiver position. I agree with that one. When you start thinking about Tim Patrick coming back and Courtland Sutton being inconsistent, I'll say. Jerry Jeudy being inconsistent, but finishing on a high. So what have you done for me lately, Jerry? Well, you kicked tail and you're working towards that last contract. Then you go out and trade up for a wide receiver and take him with the number 2 and Marvin Mims. And KJ Hamler's fighting for his life on this, for his Broncos life out there. I think that is the most interesting camp battle right now.
There's so many, though, and interesting is subjective. I feel like it's, based on your opinion, but backup quarterback, for example, that's interesting to me. What are they going to do? Is it going to be Jarrett Stidham, or could Ben DiNucci push for number 2 duties? What's going to happen at tight end behind Greg Dulcich? Is Alberto going to get another chance? Is it going to be Troutman? What do they do at defensive end, for example? Is it going to be Harris or DJ Jones kicking out and putting Mike Purcell in the middle? What are they doing at center? Is Cushenberry going to start? Can Forsyth beat him out? What are they doing at cornerback? Is Damari Mathis a lock, or can Riley Moss make some waves? What are they doing at safety? Is it Caden Stern's job, or is Kareem Jackson going to continue to push to start again? This is going to be the most intense training camp in Broncos country in quite some time, Scott.
Well, let's take a look at a couple of those, specifically the center position. I don't doubt, I said the last 2 years, other than the going into the season, no, I don't think anybody here was going to predict that Russell Wilson, that whole deal, and Nathaniel Hackett in the contract were all going to be 3 fireable offenses. I mean, any one of those 3, Nathaniel Hackett, the Russell Wilson trade going belly up so far, and the trade were three big strikes against George Paton. Only one of those for me at the time I disagreed with, and that was giving Russell Wilson that contract before he had taken a snap. But you might not have gotten him to agree for the trade unless you had already agreed to the contract. So let's move on from that. The big one for me, Zach, was, well, the Broncos have all this salary cap space. I heard it for a year, but they didn't have a right tackle. So what good is having space if you're not going to use it to upgrade an obvious miss on your team?
Preach.
Right now, I don't think that's exactly the same problem that they have at the center position. I think they tried and have tried to upgrade the center position, tried to address it in the draft, didn't quite get what they wanted, and went with a guy who they think could be kind of a sleeper, who tests like he shouldn't be in the NFL when you look at height, weight, speed, all that stuff, but is a good football player in Alex Forsyth. I have big questions at the center position, and my fear, Zach, and then I'll push it back to you, is that, okay, that's an interesting battle and who might win it, but do I care? I feel like, to me, it doesn't matter who wins it. You're not good enough at the position.
It's true. I mean, we all saw Cushenberry play last year, and he wasn't just below average. He wasn't just inconsistent or streaky. He was getting blown off the ball on almost every single snap. You like to use him landing in Russell Wilson's lap, that kind of phrasing, and it's true. If you watch the film, he really was. Russell Wilson had to kind of avoid Cushenberry falling toward his feet. So you're right. You have to have the right guy there. And the Broncos, I guess you could say they've done all they can do. They drafted Cushenberry with a fairly high round pick. They used to pick on Forsyth, and they signed Kyle Fuller, who's like the quote-unquote veteran. I still feel they should have went for like a Connor McGovern or a Ben Jones, a veteran that's a little more proven, a little more reliable, just to help you sleep better at night, because Cushenberry is by far, not just the weakest link on the offensive line, but the weakest link on the offense, and maybe even the entire roster among the 53.
Well, you mentioned Kyle Fuller, the veteran, and, as we say that, he's a veteran, and then he's been in the league for 5 years. And I guess with special teams, he has played a lot more than I thought he has. He's got 51 games, where he's seen a snap on the field, even if a lot of it was on special teams, and he played a bunch in 2021. Okay. For some reason, I'm misremembering, and I just thought he'd only played in like 2 games. So I'm like, he's only played in 2 games. The joke I was going to use was, he's only played in 2 more games than I have. But I misremembered. He does have some time under his belt. So I'm mistaken on that. Maybe he can push for harder than I've been giving him credit for to this point. I don't want a rookie center in the 6th round that's taking, that's at that spot. If I had gotten a guy in the 2nd, yeah, okay. I could see a 2nd round pick on a center is a high draft pick on a center. That's about as high as you'll ever see them get drafted. So maybe the floor is a little higher than I'm giving it credit for, but the position still scares the hell out of me. What doesn't scare me is the hot pink coming in from Brett P here, coming in fuchsia.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Brent. He says, just want to show some love for a great show. Well, thank you, sir. Love the topics. I'm so excited for the year. I hope Vance Joseph works the defense justice. Denver Broncos for life, MMH for life. Looking at that defense, Brent, is that your biggest concern? For me, I still think the defensive line, depending on how you want to line up, we can talk 3-4 this, we can talk 4-3 that. It's going to be multiple depending on situations. They're rotating guys in and out constantly. Do you have enough big bodies on that line to play the type of defense that you want regardless of situation? That's a big question I have.
You do, but in theory, but they don't have much experience. I mean, who are your big bodies except for maybe Mike Purcell, the starters, the main 3 or 4? Besides that, Awuzurike, Matt Henningsen, Tyler Lancaster, and a host of other kind of younger bottom of the roster types. I still would feel a lot better. They have about $10 million, $9 million, whatever. You take a few million and throw it at a 1-year deal for a veteran, just like you brought back Cameron Fleming for the offensive line. Go sign a veteran. That way you can sleep a little better, just in case DJ Jones doesn't kill it at 5 tech, just in case Jonathan Harris isn't who you thought he was. That is a much, much bigger need. I agree with you, Scott, in terms of my questioning. than running back.
We had a question last week on Broncos for breakfast, and we got a bunch of eyeballs in here, and many of y'all may not know about Broncos for breakfast. Nick and I come on Tuesdays. What are we now? Tuesdays and Thursdays during the summertime, at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time. So check us out. Questions we got is, what's the most likely to happen? And I think I said the most likely to happen is you'll sign a kicker. That's the most likely transaction to be made, is you don't have your starting kicker on this team yet. The second one, I think you will hear Broncos sign before week 1, somewhere along these lines. We'll be typing it out. Broncos sign veteran DL 300-plus pounder. I think you will hear that at least twice over the course of the next, I guess we're just 2 months away now, 2 months before practice. Now, will they make the team? Maybe. Will they be practice squad guys? Maybe. I just think you are going to see some more big bodies on that defensive line come in to compete for spots on this roster.
I think that's a certainty as well. And look at the Frank Clark signing, for example. That kind of came out of nowhere. It came later in the free agency process. And yeah, they might not have their starters at defensive end or kicker yet on the roster. They're going to make some more moves. And in terms of kicker, Elliott Fry can't be the only guy. Remember, they worked out Randy Bullock in veteran minicamp. He wasn't going to sign then, but I think as training camp goes on, you got to bring in competition. You can't go from McManus, Scott, to Elliott Fry. And
Elliott Fry's not just a journeyman. He's a journeyman practice squad guy. Yeah. I mean, right now he's there to make sure you've got someone to kick the ball when you're trying to do special teams and practice. That's why I'll be shocked if he's the starting kicker. I've been shocked before, but I will be shocked if he ends up being the starting kicker. Brent, want to say thank you again before we take the super chat off the screen. David McElrath coming back. He says, Alex Forsyth going back, says he's a very smart football player. There was a show, I think it was called Head of the Class back in the day. I remember, Robin Givens was in it, future Mrs. Mike Tyson. And the head of the class were the geeks in there, and they were strategizing. They were going to beat the jocks in a game of volleyball, and they got wiped out. And their coach said, listen, if I put the world's smartest chicken in a cage with the world's dumbest lion, you're going to have a bunch of dead chickens. So the smart football player, okay, but you better be – they're all smart at center at this point. That doesn't do it for me. I've heard about how smart Alex Forsyth is, how smart Lloyd Cushenberry is. I don't care. It's, no offense, David. It's just that, well, they're also, he's also big. Yeah, they're all big. So this one, it doesn't do it for me. I want to see a guy that can hold his ground, that can get a push against a nose guard. And I'm not expecting Forsyth to do that as a rookie. I'm not. Nobody should. Not as a 6th-round rookie. I don't expect that. Maybe Fuller, like I said, maybe I'm not giving Fuller enough credit, and maybe Alex Forsyth can be, maybe Cushenberry can take that leap. Seen it happen the last couple of years. I saw it happen in Atlanta with Caleb McGarry at right tackle. He was a turnstile his first 3 years. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He's an $11 million off right tackle now and was one of the best in football last year. It happens. It happens. So fingers crossed for Lloyd Cushenberry because the Broncos need him.
I was going to make the same exact point. That's the same thing we heard about Cushenberry, was how football intelligent he was and his IQ and his big brain. Well, that doesn't really matter when you have a 300-pound defensive lineman running you over and dominating you on every single snap. There's no stat column for smarts. It doesn't really help you win football games. You have to go out there and exert your power and your will over the guy in front of you. And I don't think Cushenberry can do that very well.
I used to listen to Richard Pryor all the time, and he was doing a bit about, people making fun of Leon Spinks. Man, he's dumb. He's dumb. He's like, his job is to knock dudes out. Who cares?
Exactly.
So, give him some credit. That's his job. Yeah, his job. Centers are in this. I think like 60% of players in the NFL have college degrees. It's a pretty high number especially compared to baseball. Those are a bunch of lunkheads who most of them never went to college. Anyway, I know this guy's got a big brain because I met him and got to have breakfast with him in Atlanta. And F.A. coming in.
Thank you so much.
Pink. He says, happy Sunday, guys. Have a great show. Go, Pookie. I hope he's not being rushed back. Zach, what do you think about the chances of Pookie being rushed back?
Sean Payton's been around the block, Scott. He's not Nathaniel Hackett. He's not inexperienced. He knows better, and he knows how foundational of a player Javonte is. So I don't think he's going to gamble with that. He's going to slow roll it and slow play it as he should. And also, he inherited Javonte. As good as Pookie is, he inherited him. He didn't inherit Samaje Perine. They went out and handpicked Samaje to be at worst the RB2, if not the RB1 in waiting until Javonte is 100%. So between those two factors, I don't think they're going to mishandle Pookie's recovery.
I agree. Again, there's just no way that you can not guarantee a recurring injury. And frankly, you're going to have setbacks because when you are rehabbing a knee, there's other parts of your leg that atrophy a little bit. Hamstring strains follow ACL injuries like remoras on sharks. They're just right there, like a shadow. Will he have a setback? Probably. You're not going to get to where you want to be without a setback with an injury like this. No. It doesn't mean he was rushed back. It means that's part of it. You have to just go through. This is a mother of an injury. So again, fingers crossed for this guy. The fact that he's even out there again, I think I use the phrase medical miracle and a personal miracle, a testament to the work that he's putting in. Not going to get into spiritual on this, but there's some work going on that has made this man beyond most other men. FA coming in better than most of us, that's for sure. Making a comment on the kicker with another big super chat. He says, McManus was good, but he's no Justin Tucker. He was wildly inconsistent after Super Bowl 50. I trust Sean Payton will get us a more consistent kicker. I know McManus is old news, LOL. Yeah, McManus was... I didn't expect him to be a guy that was ready to jump on board with the new regime, that was going to have tougher rules, that was going to have my way or the highway. Well, again, I'm rich. I can get $3 million somewhere else. I'll take the highway. And he did, and he got a contract that was closer to his open market value rather than what the Broncos were going to pay him, about 60% on the dollar. So, what is the guy worth? When you're being paid more than your open market is and there's no dead cap with it, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
FA, thank you so much. And no such thing as old news on July 9th in the deadest point of the offseason. We'll talk about anything Broncos right now. And it is definitely germane to mention McManus when we talk about questions on the Broncos roster. Elliott Fry isn't the most confidence-inducing replacement. But let me tell you this as well. If he is the guy, if he's capable of making his kicks, you talked about just showing up and doing your job. Doesn't matter about your experience, how big of a name, your contract, whatever. If he can come in there and be consistent, if he can come in there and make his kicks, make his point afters, I'm fine with Elliott Fry. But I do think that position needs a little more competition after McManus.
Couple more comments before we get out of here. We're at about 50 minutes, and we got a little bit of a late start tonight, and I've got an early morning with more baseball tomorrow. Want to hit on a couple comments. I think David had a good comment here. He says, all that money they gave to the offensive line, we should have upgraded at center as well. And again, you don't know. It takes two to tango on something like this. You don't know who is out there, who is available, and who you could have gotten. Those are always the questions I want to have. Well, what do you think about what they did at this position? What were their choices? What were their options? If I had $4 million and I lost the number one center because I didn't want to go to 4 or 5, okay, I'm a little upset. I'd be a little bit. I don't know that there was a great center market out there anyway. I saw Dylan in the chat earlier said the Broncos tried to trade up 3 different times to get a center. I don't know that as a fact, but I trust Dylan, so I will repeat it. I think they went after center, and Todd followed that comment up with, and I'm gonna do this because he's got a word in there that was always a trigger to me. He says, I have no idea what Cush looks like right now, but Payton seems content with him. Gotta trust the process Payton has in place. Sean Payton, that is. And frankly, Todd, I like the comment. Love what you bring to the chat. I don't trust coaches. I don't trust them to get it right. I trust them to do what they think is right. But just because they're coaches doesn't mean they're infallible. Right. And the other part of that is we don't know what he actually thinks. We don't know what they've tried to do to upgrade the center position. Maybe they've tried a bunch and they just haven't been able to. And Cush is what they've got. He's the best they've got right now. And that's what we were talking about earlier. I do believe they have tried to upgrade the position, but if he's what you've got to go with because of salary cap restraints, because of the draft, of all the reasons I can't go and get an available center who's better than what I've got, I can't dog the dude. I have to back him. I don't have any choice. It doesn't mean I love him, but I'm not going to run him down either.
The thing with and maybe you disagree, Scott, center to me is very crucial and paramount to the offensive success because that, they're interacting with the quarterback on every snap. They're the quarterback of the O-line. So seems content is fine in April, May, and June, July, when it looks decent on paper. But here's my question. What happens if you roll with Cushenberry and he's still getting blown off the ball? He's still getting dominated. He's still getting worked on every down. Who do you turn to? A 7th-round rookie in Alex Forsyth, or a guy in Kyle Fuller who's better known by the cornerback Kyle Fuller of the same name? I mean, I never even heard of this guy, Scott, and I pride myself on being a really extreme sick football fan. That is my worry. Even if Cushenberry holds up, based on last year's film, it's only a matter of time before he comes crashing down. And in that scenario, what do you do? Where do you go?
He did play 450 snaps in 2021. That's not nothing. Kyle Fuller. Again, I think the floor is a little higher. And the problem, Zach, is like I said, if this is an interesting battle, is it like a race between a bunch of Yugo, an old Hyundai Elantra, and a Volkswagen bus? It's like, yeah, it's a race and it'll be close, but they're all slow.
No one's a winner here.
The position still scares me here. And I see FA coming in again, and that's how we're going to close this out here is with FA. But I want to hit one Twitch comment real quick from Savage Boy Kev. Thank you for coming in on Twitch. He says, which receiver gets to 900 yards first? Is it realistic to have two 1,000-yard receivers? Because both Judy and Sutton had 800 plus with bad quarterback play. I wouldn't guarantee that anybody gets to 900, to be honest with you. When you think about it, they both got to 800 with bad quarterback play. Albert Okwuegbunam busted. Tim Patrick was out. Hamler was out. I had two main targets, and that's where the lion's share went until Greg Dulcich comes in. With all those guys healthy, maybe I can spread the ball around a little bit more. Maybe I can get the ball to Mims, to Judy, to Sutton, to Patrick, to Dulcich. I'm running out of fingers here to count these guys. If I go 800 yards to all of those guys, I'm at 4,000 yards. So is it possible to get two 1,000-yard receivers? Sure it is. Can you pass for a bunch of yards and touchdowns without having a 900-yard receiver? Yes, you can. My answer here, though, Savage Boy Kev, would still be Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is going to be the leading receiver for this team.
And to your point as well, when they were racking up those yards, the Broncos, more often than not, were trailing big, and they had to throw the ball late in the game. They were doing some stat padding as well. I tend to agree with Scott for the reasons he laid out, the weapons and spreading the ball around, but also in a Sean Payton offense, when you have Javonte Williams, you have Samaje Perine, you sign two big hulking road grading offensive linemen, you are going to run the absolute hell out of the football. So I don't know how Russ's yards are going to be distributed. I agree with Scott. If one receiver does get there, it'll be Jerry Jeudy. To me, he's the wide receiver one. He's going to be the biggest beneficiary of Russ's comeback season. But it could be where 900, 800, 700, and it's just all cumulative leading up to Russ's stat line.
And let's not forget the leading receivers on those teams was usually a dominant number one I already changed subject in my head. For the New Orleans Saints teams was Michael Thomas and then the running backs. Alvin Kamara had 4 straight years with 80 receptions out of the backfield. That's crazy. I mean, those are Tecmo Bowl numbers. So the guy that has the most, they could get to 900 yards the fastest could be a running back. I don't expect that to happen. I don't think you're going to have an Alvin Kamara type that's going to get 80 catches this year. But my point, Savage Boy Cab, was that you should be able to distribute the ball a little bit more effectively than trying to cram it to Sutton. Wait, you guys didn't throw to any running backs in the first game. Well, let's throw it to all the backs in the second game. That's all we're going to do. It was just so discombobulated last year that there should be more balance coordination across the board. FA's getting out of here. I don't know if I can leave us with this, though, FA. I don't know if there's any Rockies fans left. So he says, oh, Scott, go Braves. We're both Braves fans, so we did bond over that. Now back to the Broncos. Braves are playing pretty good baseball right now. They're pretty fun to watch. Even if you're a casual baseball fan, this is a fun team to watch. Unless you have to go against them, then you can just sit back and go, dang, this is a good team. They're playing pretty good baseball right now. So Eric comes in French. He says coffee is for closers, and we might have that one close us out. Zach, would you like to get us out of here tonight?
Absolutely, Scott. Appreciate you filling in for Chad on another terrific edition of the MHH podcast. Follow us on Twitter if you're not doing so already at the MHH pod. The main account on Twitter is at Mile High Huddle. Scott's at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Kelberman NFL, and follow Chad as well at Chad and Jensen. If you want some merch like you always see us rocking, go to mhhmerch.com. Check that out. If you haven't done so, please give us a like and a follow at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, on Instagram at mile_high_huddle, and an Apple Podcast. Make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every single month. But if anything, guys and gals, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you. Nailed it.
Alonzo coming in. He says, thanks for a great show. Hopefully I dream of the Broncos beating the Chiefs, and that one does come true. Sweet dreams, my friend. Sweet dreams to all the Broncos country out there, wherever you might be. It's later in some places than others, and I know we probably have some that can't sleep across the pond. And if you're watching this the next day, good morning. Good morning to you. Make sure you check us out on Broncos for Breakfast on Tuesday. Nick and I will be back, probably just Nick this Tuesday. Keep track of us on Twitter so we can tell you. And Michael Rankio coming in late with some Facebook stars, opener and closer tonight. It says, great show tonight. Zack and Scott on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Thank you to Michael, F.A., Alonzo, Sam Bam, David, Brent, David again. And there's probably, I know I'm missing Troy and Troy Boer who came in. And we had someone else that came in right at the very top of the show. I apologize. I'm forgetting David, Troy, and Michaela. How could I forget the Duchess? Shame on me. And Gary Palmer. So thanks to all of y'all for coming in. And Zach, why don't you give us a good sign off tonight?
Yeah, appreciate you, Scott. As always, Chad and I are back in the saddle tomorrow night. We'll see y'all then. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take care. And as always, go Broncos. Right-handed salute, baby.